if you are the parent of a baseball or softball player who wants your kid to be able to hit high velocities like my son does here, where he was facing this guy at this event, he was clocked 87 to 89 miles an hour, actually ended up topping 90 miles an hour, and not only hit velocity, but you want them to be able to react to off-speed pitches like my daughter does here. She's going to get a changeup, and she learns how to be on time to that and rope it into the left center gap. And how to develop power to all fields, where this is my son when he was 16, hitting the ball, gosh, I don't know, close to 400 feet to the pull side. And he also has power to the opposite field. Then in this presentation, what I want to show you is how we use the science that's now out there and the different tools and technology to create hitting routines that create these kind of results. So that's what we're going to go into in this presentation. So we want to help you create feared hitters that the other coach and the other pitcher and the other team are like afraid that you are coming up to the plate or your kid is coming up to the plate when this happens. So this is a presentation and a training that I put together for parents who like to work with their kids or coaches who want to work with their kids, and you are looking to do a better job of it. Not that you're doing a bad job, but you're looking for like, how can I piece together some things that can really create the kind of hitters that I just showed you. Those are my two oldest kids, and we use a very different hitting approach that's very science-based to create those kind of results in both baseball and softball. So that's what we're going to be covering today. I am a former Division I college baseball player, so I knew when I became a parent and my kids started to play baseball and softball what good and bad stuff looked like, but just me telling the kid, hey, do it this way, don't do it that way, like wasn't enough to get them to actually change their behavior. We had to use a totally different approach, and that's what I'm sharing with you here today. So there's three things that I think get in the way of helping your kid become somebody that others fear when they step up to the plate. So the first is they just have like an inability to square up the ball. The second is that they're like a bad mover. There's something unathletic or quirky or something about the way that they are moving that like is not right, and we could clean some things up to be more efficient. And then the third is like they just don't have good timing. There's something wrong with their timing. And all of this, when you don't have all this, the hitter doesn't have any confidence. And so if you want to create confident, feared hitters that are on time, square up balls, and move athletically, that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. Okay, so let's break this down. The first one is we want to help them make consistent hard contact. And there's a couple of keys to make this happen. 3 keys that we're going to talk about today. And the first one is posture. So what is posture? Well, I first learned about posture out at a Coastal Carolina camp. And I didn't quite understand what they were trying to get my son to do, but this is, I call it the surfboard tee. It's actually called something else. I forget it off the top of my head, but a great product. And they had my son on this drill. And so what they said at this is one of their keys at Coastal Carolina, which is like a top 25 in the nation college baseball school, is they want to see how long they can train you to keep your barrel on plane with the incoming pitch, okay? And they do that with posture. So my son gets ran through this series of drills, and he steps onto the live station where this is Coastal Carolina's stadium, and he ends up hitting the round of his life. He hits 5 balls out of the field, over the fence. He hits one that goes like completely out of the stadium. So it goes just to the right of the scoreboard over here. And it actually, there's like a 30-foot boardwalk. It clears the whole boardwalk. It clears the bullpen. I think the bullpen's right there. Anyways, it cleared a bunch of stuff out there and ends up in the parking lot. And I'd never seen my son do that before. And it came right after they had ran him through this series. So I was like, oh, we are adding that to what we do. And that's like a bunch of all this stuff that I'm putting together. I'm not going to try to teach you like, oh no, this is the style. I'm not going to argue styles with you. Instead, this is a bunch of stuff that I pulled from a bunch of different places and compiled it into what I think are like, they're just kick butt hitting routines and ways of thinking about developing your hitter, okay? So what the posture does is it allows your barrel to stay on plane with the incoming pitch for as long as possible. So what I'm talking about when I mean that is if there was a tracer line of the ball, how early in your swing can the barrel of your bat get on this green line? And then how long can you keep it on that green line? And when you can do that for more time, you end up not having to be as on time. So if you can only keep your barrel in the zone for 6 inches, then you can only hit the ball hard during those 6 inches. But if you can train yourself with posture to keep your barrel in the zone for 2.5 feet, then you have like, 400, 500x your chances of being able to square up the ball. And that's what was happening in that drill when my son all of a sudden started hitting the ball out of the field. So there's two important keys, two different planes that our bat needs to stay on if we want it to stay on plane with the incoming pitch, right? So the first is a horizontal plane. So if your swing is moving to the side, that's the horizontal plane versus staying behind the baseball. And what I've done here, this is two different examples. One of these pencil circle disc things that I homemade is using posture, and the other is not. And so what happens is if you look at where the silver part of the actual little, the actual pencil is, and how long it stays on right above the yellow line on that same path, I've marked these. So on the left, like that yellow line is where that silver node of the pencil entered the string, and the last yellow line is where it pulled off. And you can notice the one on the left is I don't know how big that is, an inch. And on the one on the right, it's like 2 inches. We've been able to keep it on for longer. And I did that by changing the posture of the pencil, and we'll get into what that means, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to be able to match the vertical plane. So if we're staying behind the baseball and through and on that straight line horizontally, that's great. But if we're coming too much up the ball, like we're doing here, or too much down and cutting down through the ball, and we're not keeping our bat on that level plane, we're not going to be as consistent. So we want to be like this. We want to be matching up the same amount as the pitch is coming down. And when we do that, our barrel stays on plane for as long as possible. And that's what the Coastal Carolina Drill Series was able to do for us. So what is posture? What do I actually mean by this? Okay, so posture is a couple of things. So when the hitter strides, we can actually measure posture. And so here we measure the difference, the angle from standing straight up of the spine to how much he's tipped over when his front foot lands. And so right here, he is leaning forward 32 degrees. And then what we see is at contact, he is leaning sideways 30 degrees, like a pole was drilled down his head and he's spinning on this pole, right? The pole only moved 2 degrees. So when I analyzed, you can see the difference right here. But when I analyzed my son's difference between these angles was 18.3 degrees. So his spine was changing postures dramatically as he was turning and as he was rotating. And so that difference was like, ooh, that's not something we want to have. And so when we put kids in posture drills that help them keep this distance to be the same so that they're not, as they're rotating, not rotating around a tipping, moving spine that's changing angles, we were able with that series to actually see, hey, you got that down to only 9.3 degrees of change. That's much better. And that allowed him to be more consistent. And so that is actually, we had him on this drill series that helped him do that. And that is when he went out and hit this furthest ball of his life, was directly after we put him on that drill series. So it worked awesome for him. The other thing that happened, I coach an 18U team. All of a sudden, my guys that I all put on this, because I came back from Coastal Carolina and I installed this into our hitting routines. This guy is a total dead red pull hitter. It's 325 down the lines right here, and he just smokes this ball out to right field, and he'd never had opposite field power in his life because we were helping his posture match planes better with the pitch. This kid, this is a junior college commit kid that I coach. He ended up, after being on this series, hitting his first home run of his life out in Omaha at a tournament that we were at, where we actually got to go watch the College World Series, which is fun. But like it was like, oh, well, this is like totally working. So that's the first thing that you got to make sure are in your workouts. You need stuff that's helping your hitter work on posture. So if you are not, then you are missing out on stuff. Okay. The second thing is lean. Okay, so what do I mean by lean? We can measure lean by the angle that we, and there's a couple ways to do it, but this one is you take that measure from the middle of the ankle into the base of the neck. And so what happens is if you lean too much back, it's bad. Lean too straight up forward, it's bad, but there's a sweet spot. And so the good range where people make most consistent contact is to lean back 63 to 67 degrees. If you're too tall, so you're above 67, straight up and down is 90, then you're gonna hit too many ground balls. And if you're too steep, you're gonna hit too many fly balls and swing and miss under a lot of balls. So we wanna make sure that we're paying attention to what this is. And so like, for example, here's a hitter that we assess their swing of, and we can see when we measure the angle, like I'm trying to put here with the yellow lines, we can see that she's at 74.5 degrees, too steep. And when you actually use a bat sensor, which we'll get into bat sensors here later, but like learning how to build hitting lessons around bat sensors and more than just the bat speed part, but other stuff that we'll get into is like super key. So right here, they have something called attack angle that we're measuring, and she's swinging down -2 degrees. So she's swinging down -2 degrees on a pitch that's coming down at, I don't know, maybe 10 degrees, and that's not two things that are on the same plane. So paying attention to tilt can fix this. So this is another one of my 18U hitters where he had this 56 degrees of lean, and it was causing him problems. We put him in the leaning series, and he goes out, and he had been slumping like really, really hard. He had gotten too tipped in the wrong direction, and after we fixed this, he got really, really hot for us. And so this is the first home run he hit after we put him on that series that started to really clean him up. Terrible footage, but he did hit that ball. So then the next is connection. So connection is something that we also measure with a bat sensor. We're using a combination of video to analyze these things, bat sensors to analyze these things. And we'll talk about how I implement it later. But what connection is if you look at the red line represents the angle that the spine is on. And then the green is measuring the difference in the angle compared to the spine. So you want to be at 90 degrees, but this down here is going to give you it's measured in angles. So this is 90 degrees. This is like 120, 130, something like that on the left. Here's the middle one that's 90. You can see the green line is perfectly at a right angle to the spine. And then the other one is less than 90. So this might be a 70 or a 65 degree angle to the spine. So what you want to do here is you want to use a bat sensor. And that's like what we are. We're like, we show you how to use tools like the bat sensor, and like you get those things. You're like, what do I do with this? Like, yeah, it reads speed. How do I like use it? So the way we use it, one way, is to first map our kids' miss hits. So I'm using a hit tracks right here, but Game Changer will map your kids' hits, see where they go. And if you notice, my son is a left-handed hitter, and we look for where they're mishitting the ball. So you see this pile of ground balls on the right side, and not the line drives into the right field. What this means is there was a problem, and he was mishitting balls on the ground. So we put a bat sensor on him that can measure what his connection scores are. And what we noticed is that when he hits the ball the opposite field, he has perfect connection score. So what happens with that tool is it gives you connection, but you got to use it in context or it doesn't make any sense. There's certain pitches your kid will have great connection on and certain ones he won't. And so when my son hits the ball the opposite field, he has perfect connection. There's nothing wrong with it. But if we give him inside pitches, he looks like the guy on the right. Excuse me. And he has scores that are less than 90. And so he mishits a lot of balls because what basically connection is, if you make contact with connection at 90, you essentially have a really a lot higher chance of making good contact. So we put him in a drill series that we experimented with a bunch of drills, and we found the drills that while we're doing the drills on that particular pitch that he's grounding out to the right side, we noticed that the drill was forcing his connection scores to be better. It wasn't so much about what to tell him or what to do. It was experimenting with the drill series so that we were like, oh, these 3 or 4 drills, these make his connection scores get to that 90 degrees. And so we put him on that. That was this last off season. We've just, as I'm recording this, after his first week of the season, this is one ball that he's going to get. He gets a low and in fastball and absolutely pisses on it to right center. And you can see that ball was not hit on the ground. So that's connection. So if you are wanting to make more consistent hard contact and you are working with a coach, I've got the wrong chart here. That's not working on posture, that's not working on lean, and that is not working on connection, then I don't know if you're getting as much out of the sessions that you're doing with your kids as you could be. So those are 3 things that I really think are important to pay attention to. So then the next one is turning that unathletic kid into a better mover. And even if they aren't like unathletic, like an elite mover, right? As far as movement patterns go. So there's some really interesting stuff about this that I want to cover that a lot of people miss. So it turns out there are 7 movement patterns that you need to learn before puberty, where if you do not learn them before puberty, you actually end up stunting your kid's neuromuscular strength potential. This is not me making this up. I will link to a source that shows you what I'm talking about here with this research, but this is This is a little graphic that's in that article that you can go check out. But there's all of these different movements. Like, you need to have lower body unilateral movements and do them concentrically and eccentrically and blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And so you need to be able to do these. And if you don't teach the kid to do it right, it ends up stunting their growth. So I'll give you an example of what one is and like why it's so important, okay? Especially to hitting and rotational athlete sports. So right here, this athlete, when he's really engaging his upper body, is not controlling his core. So his lower back is sagging right here because he's not locking in his core and not controlling it. And so when we see a kid that has not learned to do this move in their body, like he would like not check the box of having this under control yet, they'll swing like this. That's obviously not the same kid, but this is a kid with the same problem that I had a good clip of, where she's arching her back as she's starting to swing because she lacks the core control to control her body through that movement. So her body arches back to find some stability that she needs because she doesn't have it in her core, and she ends up building a weird swing path that's not going to stay on plane because she's moving incorrectly. So we got to do this with all those different movements. And what this graphic is, this is a graphic that comes from that article as well. This actually shows the difference in neuromuscular strength potential if you, depending on when you learn these different movement patterns. So the one on the top, that's if you learn them before puberty, so that's obviously the strongest. And the one in red is if you wait till puberty to learn these things. And you can see it's a significant decrease, 20, 30%, something like that. I don't know, but exactly, but it's way less. And then, so the people are like, oh yeah, we'll start lifting in high school. And your kid's like 115 as a teenage boy going to high school, like you're missing it, and you need to play catch up. And if you're catching this young, like do this stuff young. My kids started at like 6, 7, 8. You can start as young as 5, not like throwing 100 pounds of weight on a 6-year-old's back and asking them to do that kind of stuff, but learning the different movements that these articles talk about are very, very important. So we put these into all of our workouts that we do. And you can also see the green line. People think, oh yeah, play multiple sports. That'll help you be an athlete. It's like, kinda, and like it's better than the nothing, but like not really. I'm not an anti-multi-sport guy. I think you could do it for, you're the greatest at one sport and you're the star and learn how to lead, and the other one, you're not the greatest. And so you have to learn how to be a team member and play a role. And like, there's the mental break from another sport or physical injury by taking a break. I get all of that, but I do not get the, it makes you a better athlete thing. So, it just doesn't actually show that that's what happens. So anyways, that's there. So you need to learn those patterns, and when you're done hitting, we like to do different sorts of movement work that are either done before or after. The next is a joint by joint approach. So I got this from Dr. Greg Rose. I was at an ABCA convention. I was listening to a presentation. He's speaking on stage, and he said, all right, I want you guys, it was a bunch of college people in the room. If you played college baseball, raise your hand. I'm gonna bring you up on stage. I'm gonna tell you which one of you guys were pitchers. And so he brings all these people up. You can't tell looking at them. And then he asked them to do this specific exercise. So this is me on the right, and then it's my son on the left, just to show you an example. But I don't have enough flexibility in the T-spine, the upper part of my spine, where I can reach back very far. And my son has a lot more. And so what Dr. Greg Rose went on to explain is like, pitchers have like a really flexible T-spine if they throw hard. And so it's one of the keys, if you're going to be able to throw hard, is you have to be able to have the mobility in the spine to get your body in the positions that are required to generate velocity. So he could tell, he's like, you could see it on stage, the people that can't lean back far and the people that could. And so he went through, he identified everybody. He knew exactly who was a pitcher. There's a couple other guys that could throw hard, but they weren't pitchers. And the pitchers' backs looked differently if you end up making it to the collegiate level. It was very obvious to tell. So that's what's happening. Now, that's happening, that's like mobility, right? So the way the joints work is some joints need to be really mobile to get the body into the good positions, and others need to be stable. And so, like, for example, the ankle needs to be mobile, the knee needs to be stable, the hip needs to be mobile, the lower spine needs to be stable. And so, and it goes all over this. And so we run our athletes through a movement screen. So we identify where instability is and bad movements, and we make sure that they're doing movement prep exercises to get them ready and build the motor control and build the stability in these joints so that when they are swinging, they are doing things correctly. Because here's what happens. This is our pelvic control test, for example. So it's actually a pelvic and core control type of a test. But the girl on the left is what it's supposed to basically look like. She's actually not supposed to bend her elbows at all. She does bend her elbows a little bit. But the girl on the right can't roll the hips up, and it isn't controlling her core and her pelvis well enough to be able to be stabilized. So when she tries to swing, her body is going to swing with some incorrect movement patterns because she doesn't have the stability to be able to do the movement. So you have to be able to do that. And 95% of kids won't fully pass a movement screen. There's stuff wrong. If your kid doesn't hit well, and you give them a lesson and they don't immediately fix it, you give some kids a hitting instruction, they oh, I'll just do that and it works. Those are kids that have the ability to move that way. But when you give another kid who looks like they have the exact same problem, the exact same drill, and it doesn't work, it's because the kid doesn't move in the right way. They lack some mobility, they lack some stability, they don't have a movement pattern that the other kid has that's down yet. And so you have to make sure you weave that into your hitting workouts and your training with kids. Help them just be better athletes, less likely to blow out knees, all sorts of good things will happen. Just be a healthier person. Okay, next one is sequencing. So this is how you move through these in a way that elite hitters do. And so I love this picture. This is Jose Altuve standing next to, I think it's Aaron Judge, but he's only 5'6", and yet he still has hit 30 home runs, or I actually don't know his exact total, but it's right around 30 home runs, 25, 30, only every year, right? And he's only 5'6", and there's big guys that can do that too, and they do it even better. But when you got somebody who's under 6 feet tall, who can hit over 30 home runs in a season, I like to call those little boppers. And they are doing something different. They're doing something more efficient to get energy produced out of their smaller frames than the other people are. So you want to pay attention, if you want to maximize your power, to how little guys hit. It doesn't mean if you're big, you can't get away with it, but it does mean that you may have to be big in order to get away with it if you're not going to pay attention to how little boppers move. Okay. So the main thing that I think is helpful to understand when you're trying to think about making sure you are training your kid to swing like little home run hitters is, I like to use the analogy of, if you've ever been inner tubing on a lake behind a boat, what do you want to make sure that the rope looks like before you tell the driver to hit it? Do you want the rope to be straight, or do you want it to have a bunch of slack in there before you tell the driver to hit it? And if you've ever been inner tubing behind the boat, you very, very quickly figure out that you do want the rope to be straight, because you want to move the same time the boat does. Otherwise, you got problems. But the body has something very similar. So they're called fascial lines. They're like ropes / rubber bands of the body. And what happens is, if you quickly stretch them before you flex them, it allows your body to be way, way more explosive than it normally would be capable of being. So kangaroos have a lot of this, for example. And with rotational athletes, what's interesting to note is the fascia runs crisscross in the middle of our body. That's why when we walk, we don't walk same side. Our right arm doesn't go forward while our right leg does. We're always crisscross. It's how our body's designed to work. And so as a hitter, you want to stretch that fascial line across the torso before you flex it. And so you want to do this in a certain order. So I have a little graphic here of this. Okay, so the way to do this is you first fire your hips, that stretches the fascia across your core, then your shoulders and your arm and the wrist. So it goes hips, shoulders, arm, ropes. And that, when you do it this way, all of the slack is taken out of the ropes, the fascial lines in your system, and you're allowed to stretch the whole thing so it can whack, so it can send it, okay? So you need to be able to fire your body in that order. Now, if you have never put your kid in drills that help them learn to do sequencing right, and you don't know how to use bat sensors to make sure that you are tracking if the sequencing is getting better or worse, then are you teaching them the right way? I don't know that you are. And I can tell you from doing this for a long time that the sensor lets you see things your naked eye can't see. At least mine can't. So that certainly means that some of you guys out there can't as well. But this is the order that you want to kind of swing it. Here's an example of Freddie Freeman doing it. And really good example, just his hips firing before his shoulders. And so you can see his right front hip here. If there's a rubber band attached from that to his rib cage, he's really getting a stretch. He is taking the slack out of the ropes or the fascial lines in his body before he fires, and it really allows him to be more explosive. And this is what little hitters do. Big guys can do it too, but little hitters have to do it. And so that's the launching of a system. You take the slack out of the rope so it can go. But then the next piece is you got to stop. So how fast you can stop each segment actually helps send the parts above it faster forward. So Great little example of this. This is from Ben Brewster of Tread Athletics. I've never seen a better example of this. But so here he is. This is a pitching example, but this right there is him accelerating the pelvis. He's only accelerating it. He's not decelerating it. And then actually, let me stop this for a second, because on the right, what this graph is the red line is a line of how fast his pelvis is accelerating. And then you can see it goes up, and then it peaks, and it goes down really quickly. And then his shoulders are the green line, and then his arms are the blue line, and his, I don't know, brown or whatever line is the hands. And so they all accelerate fast and then decelerate really quickly. And so that's what we're trying to do here. But if you only focus on the accelerating, that's what this guy's doing in this clip. Only going forward, that's one thing. But to send more energy, look what happens when he does a decel. So watch how there's more energy that's going to get whipped in the rope when he decelerates his pelvis faster. So stops his pelvis from rotating faster. There. Do you see the difference? That is sending way more energy down the rope than this first one. You see? So are you doing deceleration for the pelvis, the torso, the shoulders, and the wrist in your training? And it's like, no, is the answer to what most people do. Some, but if it's not a part of what you're doing, you're leaving power on the table. So you just are. So that's like that's like one part of doing this. The other part, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but the muscles of your body can be converted from slow twitch to fast twitch. Not all of them, and your genetics will determine how many of them can be converted. But what we have here is we have a cross-section under a microscope of a muscle fiber, both pre and post, like a plyometric training series. And so you have at the top the green and the blue. The blues are slow twitch muscle fibers, and the greens are fast twitch. And I'm like I am aware that, like, if you're an expert watching this, interpreting this, I'm giving you like the layman, easy to understand version. I do realize it's more complicated than this, and there's names for these things that I am definitely simplifying. But for the general purposes of understanding the concept, I'm intentionally making it simpler to understand. So what happens after you go through the training is so it's like a 50-50 relationship in the top. At the end, after a plyometric training series, you see that it's like only 1/3 slow twitch. So you've taken a whole third of muscles that used to be slow, and you've converted them into fast twitch. And so what you see is over a 6 to 12 week period of time, you see ridiculous explosive gains if you will train the muscles of your body using plyometric training, and specifically plyometric training for rotational athletes. So one of those examples is when we use weighted bats. That's one of the examples. You can see it's one of the things that helps this happen. It's something I actually did as a high school player. I wasn't going to play in college. I put myself on a plyometric training routine for rotational athletes, and it added 100 feet to how far I could hit the ball in the course of a year. And why I ended up getting to play some Division I baseball because of it. But the studies are out that this group improved 10%, 6%, 8.2%, 8%. Like, if you're not on a weighted bat training program that's focused specifically on how to do it with sequencing, so that you're getting and deceleration, you're taking all three of those pieces and blending them into a program, then you're just leaving power on the table that you could have. So it totally works. And that fascia is, it can be trained. So like sprinters, this is how they train it. This is one way. This is like a ridiculously, don't do this at home. You're probably not ready for it. Almost guaranteed. You'll blow out your Achilles. But he's actually starting the act of jumping before he hits the ground. And you can increase your tendons' thickness and elasticity and springiness by putting your tendons under certain types of stress. And so we do this intentionally with some weighted bats in the types of workouts that we do, so that we can train all of these systems of the body to just fire faster. So then what we do is we make sure we use sensors or some sort of technology. I really do like sensors to track this. So this is one example of a drill my daughter's doing. And so we're specifically working on how fast she is accelerating her barrel. We're actually have the iPad hooked up to a bat sensor. And so all of our drills Like she's actually tracking the part, we're working on the part where she fires her hips before her torso, and we're measuring it on the bat sensor with different types of stats. And so like that connection stat that I showed earlier, that can show up here. And so depending on what we're working on, what part of the swing we are training, whether we're training on plane or whether we're training connection or whether we're training the explosive parts, we'll use different numbers from the bat sensor. But we really like using that tool. And if that's something that you would like help with, like at the end of this, I will give you some options if you would like me to help you do that you can contact us about, because that's what we do. We help people design these workouts so that they are better coaches for their kids, or at least get some more things from us to help them do so. The other benefit about doing this, especially with young kids, and it really is for everybody, but this is my, how old is she here? 9. Maybe she is 8 at the time of this, 8 or 9-year-old daughter. Not a very good mover yet. And we are working on how well she can rotate. And so we can see here on the phone, I'm just putting her in an environment, I'm putting her in a drill, asking her to do it, and she's trying to beat her score. And so I don't know how many of your kids, after doing tee work, ever do a cheer like this on the tee that are 8 and 9 years old, but it totally changes the dynamic when you set it up right, so that you've set up like fun, challenging environments where they're trying to beat their score, and it's not like dad yelling at you type of stuff, but positive. And so like all of my kids like having me coach them, something that not a lot of parents say, but it's because we design our workouts to be like the feedback is unbiased and from a thing, and I'm just there helping you try to figure it out. And we run experiments and we test it to see what works and what doesn't. Okay, so I put my daughter on a program as one example that did all that. And like a quick example over an 8-week period of time, this is when she was going from 12 to 13. She wasn't quite 13 yet, the end of her 12-year year. We took her over 8 weeks from having 53.7 mile an hour bat speed to 60.6. And every mile an hour you can add to how fast a kid can swing the bat. You add 6 feet to how far the ball can go. So that next week, literally a week after we put her on that program, she comes down, she's 12 here. She's only 5 foot tall at the time. And she's actually the second smallest girl on the team, and she hits her first ever home run over the fence that she's always like, no, it wasn't, Dad, it was a grand slam, which is totally true. But she's only 5 foot tall when she did this and can hit the ball out of the field to the opposite field. But she wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't have done little bopper stuff. We hadn't have cleaned up her movements. We hadn't have focused on the connection scores. We had all this stuff. Like, it all piles into being able to do it this way. So it creates really cool moments. So I am 5'10", and so that's her there. You can see that she's not a very big person. And the other thing about this is all these different numbers I'm talking about, like, they know what these numbers need to be, or there are numbers you should know of where your kid needs to be if they want to actually play at certain levels. So that 61, for example, that I was showing you, that on here is where it's at the top range of where high school varsity athletes average tend to be. Certainly there are some that can be more. My son, he's a junior. He swings the bat on average like 72 to 74 miles an hour as a junior in high school. So much faster than the average, because I've had them on this since they were 10 years old. So we have workouts that have the posture, the lean, the connection, the movements, the mobility, stability, and the sequencing. Like we're really doing some stuff here, but none of it matters if you're not on time. And so there's some keys to being on time that you also got to work on doing this with. So I'll go over this next part quickly because I have made videos on the past about this one topic. So if you want to help your athlete be on time, this is something my son was going through. Whenever they make a jump up in level, like we were going from, he was hitting 85 miles an hour really well, and had enough bat speed to handle that. But when it started to get up to 90, it was like not going very well. And so we really needed to take another focus, and we helped him make this adjustment. We did it when he was younger. He'd gotten away from it. We needed to revisit it. And I want to kind of just show you what I mean by working on what we call load timing. Okay, so a lot of people think that you don't need to have a leg kick, it takes too long and all this kind of stuff. But if you look at this guy gets his leg lift. If you look at where his leg lift is and then you look at where the pitcher has the ball, you'll notice that he's all the way up with his leg lift. He's actually starting to float forward before the pitcher has released the ball. And so you want to have an idea. You want to film your athlete. I like filming this from the side, as you're going to see. And you want to see, when does your athlete start to move forward? So one key that I like to look for is, when does your athlete's leg get to the peak of its leg lift? So in this example, I'll just kind of show you. You'll get the idea. When my son's at the peak of his leg lift, if you were to watch that again, you'd actually see that he's starting to go forward like right about that same time as his leg gets to this particular point. So I'll just play it for you again. If you're looking at his back hip, like it's starting to go forward right there. And so that's at the peak of his leg lift. So it's really close to the same thing. It doesn't matter how big your leg lift is. But then the next piece that you want to pay attention to is right here, the ball. Where's the ball when you are at your peak leg lift? And so when he was at that peak leg lift, where was that? When he was at there, the ball was like 1.5 feet out of the pitcher's hand. And he ends up being late and gets severely jammed and grounds out on this. He was also, and this guy was a 90-mile-an-hour thrower. Okay, so now fast forward, we put him on some load timing drills. This is taken, this is literally last week from the time that I'm recording this. It might be later than that after you watch this, but if you watch this, this is also a guy that's throwing 90, the same guy I showed you at the very beginning of this video. Right there is the peak leg lift, and you can see that the pitcher has the ball right here. He has not started to even rotate yet. So that is where he needs to get his peak leg lift to in order to hit this ball. And so he gets a single off of this hard hit. And that's what we're talking about. And so we need to design training environments that teach kids how to practice when to go. And you will find that they are not very good at this. And so you need different times too. Like that's how you time up somebody who's throwing 90. It's different if you're timing up somebody who's a 75-mile-an-hour thumber. And you fast pitch players, it's the same thing. It's just your timing when in the arm circle you're going. So like my daughter, she has to go right when the girl's hand or ball holding hand is passing her glove. That's when her leg needs to be at the top of the leg lift if she's going to be on time for something that's over 60 miles an hour. So if you aren't talking about these sorts of things with your hitter, I think that you're leaving a lot of success on the table. Because even a bad swing that doesn't do all of this stuff right, if it's on time, it's got a chance. And you can still make a lot of success. Okay, now I want to talk about adjustability and how we need to build A, B, and C swings to be able to do that. Okay, so an A swing, pretty simple. This is the swing you're trying to get off all the time. It's kind of the one that everybody always teaches, right? Whatever, do this style, a teacher man says, and somebody else will argue with them, and this is the best way. Okay, that's great. That's how you get off your A swings. We can fight about that some other day. That's not what this presentation is about. The B and the C swings are the ones that we want to talk about. So a B swing, these are swings when we have 2 strikes and we want to be able to deepen up the contact point. So a B swing is where we're trying to make contact deeper in the hitting zone, like 6 inches out in front of home plate, so that we can battle pitches. And so we want to intentionally put kids in positions where they're letting the ball get deep and they actually practice fouling it off until they get a pitch they can hit. So here we are in one of our drive it oppo days. So this is where my son is working on really trying to let the ball get deep. And we're trying to do it with authority. We're actually thinking, I'm trying to hit home runs off the left field foul pole. That is the approach that works for him. And this allows him to let the ball get deep so that if they throw changeups, sliders, curveballs, he can adjust out front because he wasn't already trying to hit the ball out front like you do on an A swing. So that's the difference with like an A swing. An A swing, you're trying to like make contact 12, 18 inches out in front. B swings, we're deepening that up. So that's what we're trying to do here. Now you need to like have the ability to drive the ball oppo, which is part of what we analyze kids swings for. But yeah, here's an example of a B swing. So this is a great at bat. This ends up being a 9 pitch at bat. And so this isn't a bat. He takes a fastball. It's in. He's gets jammed on it, but he learns how to foul it off. He's practiced this. Then he takes a pitch. I think he's going to get a slider here. It's a low outside, good pitch because he's waited. He's not fooled. He just fouls it off. Gets another inside pitch, fouls it off. And then eventually the pitcher hangs him a slider over the middle of the plate. And he eventually gets a base hit out of it. So our goal are to deepen it up to foul pitches off. It wears the pitcher out. And you eventually get, like, you end up hitting the hanging breaking ball. So this has been a really, really cool approach that you need to train intentionally and that we build drill series around to help you do that. Then the other one is C swings. And so this is one where I like to think of these as how to hit the hanging breaking ball or how to hit the hanging changeup in softball. It's something that's like, it's slower, but it's not like a great pitch. We're not like fouling off an on the black pitch. This is like they threw you a pitch and it hung up. You were able to identify it and you have the ability to get off a certain kind of swing. So there's 2 moves that you want to build into your hitters' routines. So the first one, Yordan Alvarez here, if you look at his front knee, he sees a curveball, and there's this little hesitation as he sinks into his leg. That is his body buying time while he waits. His eyes recognized it, and then he's buying time so he can hammer it, a good pitch to hit. This is a good one. Shout out to Matt Pierce here, who I got this off of his Twitter profile. But this is a fastball, breaking ball. Fastball's on the left, breaking ball's on the right. And you'll notice that if you look at his fastball timing here on the left, he's just like a normal hitter. And on the right, you see him sink into the legs a little bit, buying time, and then going. So are you training your hitter to have this move? If you're not, you're not going to build a complete hitter that can handle somebody else's off-speed stuff. So that needs to be built into what you're doing. So that is what you see when my daughter hit this changeup. We do this kind of stuff. She has this extra sink into her knee that she was able to pull off, and that's the move that you need to drill into your kids so they can do this. You can't just tell them, hey, stay back, recognize it. It's like, no, we need to train some subconscious moves to be able to do that. And then the other one is the ride it out. So the ride it out, if you look at this, let's see if I should pause this video. So this is a drill series. What we have here, I've intentionally overlaid these 2 swings. The ball out front is designed to be, on this front tee, designed to be a changeup that you were a little bit fooled on, and you have to go make contact out front. And the other one's a fastball. So the goal here is we're hitting the fastball off the outside, the left field foul pole for him as a hitter. And so it's on the outside corner. And then if he gets a changeup, then he's going to go hit the other one. So if you notice, when my son's front foot gets down, like both videos, like this, it's at the same time. But at this point, if he recognizes curve, we need to build the ability to ride the back hip out longer for another, what is this? I don't know, 6 inches, 7 inches, something like that, to buy some time to go get a changeup. And now we'll reach it, and we build the ability to do that. But what we find most hitters do is they take the same kind of stride with both swings. So this is something I was listening to somebody talk about, watching Miguel Cabrera hit, when they would overlay the video footage of him hitting off-speed versus fastballs, and he had this movement pattern where he would ride it out. So when you combine these 2, you add a ride it out movement pattern that you train the kids to do and the flex of the knee. Now you've got 2 systems that can adjust to off-speed pitches way better. So those are very helpful. This is something I've been teaching him for a long time. This is actually my son's first high school varsity hit. He had this, this was with 2 strikes. The pitch before this, he actually almost hit a double down the left field foul line. The pitcher, by the way, is only a sophomore at this time, but this is a couple years later now, an Ole Miss commit. So he's going to Ole Miss to play Division I baseball. Not that he was throwing as hard as he's now. And he's a little bit younger in his career, but very good stuff, right? Like no slouch. And so my son rides out his back hip, and he gets I forget if it's a curveball or a slider, but he's able to hit a hard single in the right field because he has this move built into his repertoire, where I find most people they just get destroyed by off-speed pitches. So that's really the piece to, like, you got to, if you want to be on time to off-speed pitches, like, and you're not building the B and C swings into the normal A swing work that you do, then I don't know that you're doing everything you could be doing. And a lot of people try to think with 2 strikes, I'll just choke up and put it in play. Like, did you notice, like, we're not trying to do that. My son's trying to go yard, but it's off the opposite field foul pole. And that you can now do damage with 2 strikes without sacrificing contact quality, because you've deepened up the contact point, and you can still reach outside pitches. So super critical. And then the other one is, in order for that to work, like, you need to be better at identifying pitch shapes and pitch types. So this is taken from Pitching Ninja, but what you'll see here is this is 2 overlaid pitches. This is a curveball and a slider. And what happens is they start for the first half of the pitch delivery in the same spot. And what happens with most hitters is you have to make your decision on when you are going to swing at this pitch before they separate. And so this is why hitters chase bad pitches. They make their decision to swing right here when you can't tell the difference, okay? So if we can wait longer and we can start to make the decision here before we swing, now we have a better chance. Now, yeah, I'll go into this. I'm keeping it simple. So with pitch shape, for example, if you look at this is my son pitching, you could see that the yellow line, he's on the right, he's throwing a curveball. And you'll notice if you're a hitter, you train yourself to identify pitch shapes by seeing when the ball pops up like this is going to be a curveball. And then the brain needs to either use the ride it out strategy, which is what I like to do, or the sink the leg into the front leg into the ground, like my daughter used, to buy time to still be on time to that pitch. But if there's a fastball, it doesn't hump up over the yellow line. So you can learn how to see the shapes. And so change-ups for girls come out higher if it's going to be a strike than not. Sliders kind of come out the side of the hand. They have different shapes. Okay, so my favorite way that we train this is Win Reality. Is you use the disappearing pitch module, and you have a window here. He's going to throw the pitch, and you have to identify what was that pitch. It popped up out of his hand. Oh, that's a curveball. Great. And then as you get better, you keep bumping it back. So now we're like 5 feet out, and you'll be amazed if you look for pitch shapes and train yourself to look at pitch shapes. You can train your eyes to see this difference in this just right out of the hand type of stuff that we see right here. And this is what we spend a lot of time doing with my son and my daughter so that they can identify pitch shapes out of the hand. So, yeah, this is super critical. Also, not the only way to do this, but you can do this off of live is ideally the best. I'll link to this research article as well. NCAA softball teams are doing this. Or at least one went through a study where they saw significant increases in their ability to recognize pitches better out of the hand. They went to a whole other level than Win Reality did. So it's not like it's a study of Win Reality, but there's something here that I think we need to be paying attention to. If you don't have pitch shape recognition in part of your training, then you are missing. You're missing out. So I think this needs to absolutely be something that you do. Now, there's another piece to this. And when I was showing before, like if you can wait longer, you can start to see the differences in the shape. So this is something that we can train you to do. So there's something in the swing that the bat sensor can measure called G-forces. And so what happens is if you can generate in the swing less than 10 G-forces, you have to make the decision, like this graphic on the left. This is a graphic put out by Prep Baseball Report, where the 1 is. That's when you have to make your decision. Like when both a fastball and a curveball are on the same plane. They haven't separated directions yet. If you can get between 10 and 20, you get to make your decision on the 2s. So now all of a sudden you start to see that break and you start to lay off some of those pitches or decide that you want to swing at them. And you end up making a better decision. And if you can get over 20, so the 20 to 30 Gs, those are the ones, and the 3 where you get to wait a long time in order to be able to identify the pitch. And so you end up making way better decisions. And so you don't chase stuff and you know exactly when to swing at it. And they've actually found that this G-forces is the highest correlating factor to if you end up playing Major League Baseball or not. The average is 17, but if the higher they get, the just better they are. Their swings are faster. That you can only do that, by the way, if you do this stuff. This is the stuff that gets your G-forces faster. This acceleration and deceleration training in the right order, that is the stuff that trains G-forces. It's actually what my little girl who was cheering on the tee was training. We were measuring G-forces for her. She was only getting 2. That was a new record for her. So we got a ways to go. Yeah, so anyways, when you train that stuff from the sequencing series, it helps you actually apply to this. And so all these things work together. This isn't like just do this, then do this. It's like they all intermix. You need to be able to do all these things. They really help you. If you don't do the movement control stuff, like you can't move the right way to keep your barrel on plane or to sequence right. So you got to get that all put in. And so all of this is what we take into consideration when we work with a hitter and we design a hitting training program for them. And so if you think like, wow, okay, like I would like to start to take this kind of approach to work with my hitter, and you are a parent or a coach who you like working with your kid. You're not the kind who's just like, oh, I'm just going to go hire a coach and do all this stuff. So one, like, are they doing all this stuff? Like, or do they do enough other stuff that that you think it's worth it? Or are they like just doing teach you how to do the A swing, but they haven't screened them for movement patterns? And so like, I don't know if it's going to work for you, right? Like, you let me know. But if you'd like someone to put together something like this for you, that's what we do. So it's basically 3 kind of areas. We do the analysis. We have a movement screen that we analyze hitters through. We have a swing assessment where we analyze their game film or their cage film to look for how long they measure their posture and their lean and their connection, and on time. On timeness from the game film. Like, we analyze all 3 of these sections for you. We have assessments for each one of these, and then we have programming that we create for you based off of what we see. So if you've got certain sequencing issues in your athlete, your program is going to be different than somebody that doesn't. And it might be different because your athlete failed 2 movement screening tests, the ankle and the knee, but you had good core control and single leg balance, and somebody else didn't. So you get the programs are totally customized so that you get what you need. And that's what we build for people. And then what we do is we give you that program, and then we offer remote coaching so that we can help you install it into your kid's life. So you can send us footage of your kid doing it. We give you feedback. You can ask questions with us. And we just are like, we're like the bat phone you can pick up and call for help when you're trying to implement this stuff and get that help so that as you're training your kids, you can take them to the next level. And so this is really, really effective for us, as I've tried to show you, because it really, really does work. And if you'd like my help, there's a link or a phone number that should be somewhere below in the description of this video or on the page. Just reach out to me, say, yo, I'm in, let's do this. And I will send you pricing details for how to get this kind of help from us. Now, this isn't a $10 ebook. This is like, I spend hours and hours and hours working on analyzing your kid and helping you on the phone. So like, if you're looking for, the next free drill, just go on YouTube. We do something a little more in depth here with the training that we offer. But if that's something you'd like, go ahead and reach out. I would love to take a look at your athlete stuff and help you analyze them to hopefully turn them into somebody that the other team and coaches and pitchers really fear out there at the plate. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this is helpful, and we will talk soon.